Hi, everyone, and a warm welcome from the CoFence team. During today's webinar, we will discuss resiliency strategies for battling phishing attacks in an AI-driven era. On the agenda for today, we will introduce today's speaker panel, discuss resiliency, how it's defined and measured, talk about the impacts that AI has had on SAT programs, and then we'll dive into SAT best practices. And then towards the end, we'll provide insight into industry comparison data and cover any questions from the audience. Today's speakers, I'm Rachel Roldan, VP of Product. Amanda Wiesman is our Director of Customer Experience. Lee Martin is the Senior Director of CoFence's SAT Solution Set. And before we dive right in, I'd like to cover a few housekeeping items. This session is being recorded and will be available on our website within the next few days. And throughout the presentation, feel free to use the Q&A window in your console to submit any questions that you have. We will cover as many questions live at the end as time permits. If we do not get to your question, someone from the CoFence team will follow up with you after this session. So let's dive right in. And first, let's talk about resiliency.
So thank you, Rachel. So within the CoFence PhishMe ecosystem, we've observed that continued education and training drives higher resiliency and lower susceptibility. So ultimately, the higher your organization's resiliency is for your security and awareness training program equates to the more resilient your organization will be to a real-world attack, therefore narrowing your time to mitigate phishing threats that are bypassing your technical controls. Resiliency is a holistic measurement for your program's overall success. It factors in your organization's susceptibility and reporting rates. It's calculated by taking the number of users whose only action was to report the simulated email and dividing this out by the number of users who felt susceptible. And this moves your security conversation from vulnerability to capability. Using 2024 as an example, you can see the average resiliency rate was 6. This means that for every one person who felt susceptible to a phishing simulation, 6 people reported the email as their only action. When the number of reports exceeds the number of clicks, your attacker's edge has disappeared.
There is no doubt that AI has had a major impact on not only the threat landscape, but also how you run your SAT programs. While many organizations are using AI to help defend, so are attackers. They're using AI to deploy attacks. And really no longer are the days of the spray and pray effect or generic and obvious indicators within emails. Attackers are using AI to deploy the same amount of volume of attacks that have an even more personalized and sophisticated approach to them. They are, for example, impersonating well-known brands. They're scraping and leveraging social media sites such as LinkedIn and Facebook, whatever they can get their hands on to personalize and target users. And also many of them are taking advantage of the millions of records that have been part of breaches. In addition, it's no longer just about email. Attackers are leveraging what we call multi-channel communications, like text messages, voice calls, corporate messaging systems like Teams and Slack. I'm sure many of you have seen or experienced one of these. And as things continue to evolve, so does your SAT program. So over the next 20 minutes or so, we're going to cover these best practices you see here on the screen and also provide some recommendations to help build resiliency inside your SAT programs. So first up, Amanda is going to talk to you all about the importance of communication.
By communicating your program to your employees, you're setting the expectation, intent, and goals that are behind your training program. Ideally, it should occur when your program starts, but also as new joiners are onboarding into your organization and also various times throughout the year. We typically recommend sending quarterly program status communications and providing at least yearly reminders that are related to your program's results and priorities. When it comes to communicating, your message should be brief, but also direct. You want to drive the major points home. Remember that overarching goal of a cybersecurity awareness program is to bolster reporting. So never be afraid to over communicate on this point. Next, you should ensure that employees are aware of any real world threats that are targeting your company today. For instance, we've seen an uptick of business email compromise over the past year. In fact, about 70% increase from 2023 to 2024. And why is BEC on the rise? Well, it's because threat actors are leveraging generative AI to craft highly targeted and cosmetically perfect campaigns, just as Rachel mentioned previously. So if you're seeing a surge in BEC as well, then make sure you're sending out company newsletters, sharing red flags of what you should be watching for when you're interacting with an email. Also, you should provide insight about the current events and timely topics as they arise. And remember that cybersecurity awareness training should expand well beyond the corporate setting. So inform employees of threats that they may be seeing that are happening outside of the office. For instance, certain threats are cyclical in nature, like IRS fraud during tax filing season or shipping scams during the holidays. So make sure you're continually reminding your employees to be vigilant during these times of the year, also by using some newsletters or educational content. A well-trained employee is a well-rounded employee. So teaching them about risks at home carries their vigilance into the workplace.
All right. The next best practice we'd like to talk about is prioritizing relevance. And the question you might ask is why? And it's going to come down to two main factors. It's going to come down to engagement with your learner population and solvency for your security posture. So here are some do's and don'ts that I want to give you as examples of how best to build your program around security awareness training. First do in the do column is to immerse your learners in real world experiences. You want to make the training that you're providing them something that resonates with them, something that builds a durable memory, and something that instantiates them a real world threat sensitivity so that they're ready to behave in the right way when they're facing down a threat, whether that's in their mailbox or whether that's on their phone or whether that's in their collaboration tool. What you don't want to do is be predictable and obvious. There's nothing that can cut down the way your learner population thinks about your program like it being boring, predictable, too easy, or obvious. You don't want to make your employees feel like they're being tricked, but at the same time, you don't want to feel like you are looking down on them by giving them something so easy. You also want to evolve your program with the threat landscape. It's not going to do anybody any good to be delivering threat vectors that were hot 5 years ago. You want to be on the evolving curve of the threat landscape and instantiating that into the content choices that you make when you deploy your security awareness training. Using stagnant or irrelevant content or content that is more suited for compliance rather than security awareness are not going to lead to the outcomes of the program that you're trying to build. You also want to review really specific tactics and techniques and make sure that your content choices have those called out for your employees so that they can be aware of the tactics being used against them. They can be aware of tactics for them to use in avoidance and understand the techniques that are appropriate that fit with your corporate processes. You can't assume your employees have a specific knowledge or skill set unless you've already built it with your program. And you want to also measure useful reporting insights. We've talked about it a little bit earlier, but building a culture around reporting views your employee base as assets for cultivation, rather than if you give up on that conditioning, you see them as risks to be managed only.
Next up is developing a strong reporting culture. By deploying Cofen's Reporter to your organization, you are giving your employees the tool that they need to properly respond to a potential threat with an easy click of a button. It provides real-time feedback to that employee, which also can be customized to match your organization's best practices. A strong reporting culture is critical to defending against a phishing incident, even if they report after interacting with a suspicious email. Bottom line is that people are a vital part of the solution. So you need to make sure that you're easily helping them reach that potential. To set up your program for success, we recommend implementing Reporter very, very early on in your program. And also remember, again, that primary goal of your phishing simulation program is to reduce risk and also condition users to act when they encounter a real attack. Given this, you want to place a large focus on reporting for your security and awareness training program. Recognize positive behaviors regularly. The more an employee reports during a simulation, the more they're going to report a real threat and build a resilient workforce. Looking across all Cofense PhishMe scenarios in 2024, you can see that organizations that have Cofense Reporter deployed have a lower susceptibility rate. Employees become conditioned to question suspicious emails, and they can quickly request a review simply by reporting that message.
So how do you use a variety of training to build the type of program that you want? It's not enough just to send out a single piece of e-learning or even 4 or 5 phishing simulations per year. To get the best results, you want to mix and match the way you're engaging with your employees. So there's different approaches to this, and each one has a different outcome that it's trying to achieve. You can go with something like an infographic, and that doesn't just have to be delivered into an employee's mailbox. Those are designed where they can be printed out and put up in break rooms or put up in hallways. It's all about making people aware of your program and aware that security practices that are in alignment with your process and procedures is part of your corporate culture. You can also use real life SegMIS templates for your phishing simulations. These are straight from Cofense intelligence. These are verified real threats and available in PhishMe. You can generate tons of effective data by enrolling your employees in interactive and role-based e-learning experiences that generate a score. Even though this is e-learning, for Cofense, these are also vehicles for real threat intelligence. We build our learning experiences around that real threat intel. So we have a wide range of different types of content that we can use when you are reaching out to engage your employee base. And it can also depend on the level of maturity that your program has. If you're already achieving, a sub 4% susceptibility rate, then you may want to actually engage in some more difficult or targeted or role-based SIMs. If you're in the 20 to 30% rate, master the basics first. Give folks a baseline of information and then continue with simulation conditioning. And you can get closer to the results that you want. Within our content library, we have a ton of different ways to engage your employees, and they make memories in different ways. But all of these different types of content are vehicles for that real threat intelligence. Down here in the middle, we have one of our most popular infographics where we have the T-Rex with a phishing envelope in the middle of its mouth. This is one of our infographics that we put out in the Hollywood Fish series. We also have interactive games like the War of the Worlds. We have Choose Your Fish, where you make role-based choices, and we have that manifested here in our CyberGP. We also have podcasts, long-form discussions between two characters who are talking in depth around cyber threat identification and avoidance. We also have types of content in the animation realm that are really based on lowering the perceived threat your employees may feel around their performance and making them feel more engaged with your program and more likely to do what you need them to do when the time comes.
And another element tied to content variety that Lee just covered is consistency. Not only do you want to find the style types of content that work for your organization, but you also want to be consistent, which is a key part when running an SAT program. Think about if you are trying to learn a new language. If you only practice a few times a year, it's not likely you're going to remember what you learned or be fluent in that language anytime soon. And at Cofense, we observed that customers who run monthly simulations have a higher resiliency and a lower susceptibility rate, as seen in the chart on the screen there. And this can also help narrow your time to mitigate actual threats. So what is the gold standard in terms of frequency? We recommend at least monthly simulations to every person in your organization. In addition to that, we recommend that you send additional exercises to those who need more conditioning. We call these repeat clickers. The next would be quarterly spear fishes to highly visible groups inside your organization, such as executives or the finance team. And if you do have a large population of non-reporters, start sending them newsletters regarding the importance of reporting. This goes back to communication that Amanda covered. And as someone new joins your organization, your new hires, include them in a simulation to introduce them to your program. Next, let's talk about maturing your program. After you have been running your program for quite some time, we recommend layering and incorporating additional aspects. Take it to that next level. This can be in a number of different forms, such as using variety tactics. If you typically run a URL phish, try a credential phish or callback phishing simulation, something that is targeting your organization and a real threat. Remove obvious clues. As we mentioned, these aren't really used anymore with the use of tools like AI. These aren't just obvious as they used to be. Provide training on topics beyond email, such as deepfakes, AI, voice, text. Make sure that you're hitting multiple different channels and angles in your training content. And add personalization. You can add the person's first name or department, make that message feel more personal to the user. And consider spoofing your domain as the sender. And the last one there is see what brands are targeting your organization. Here at Cofense, our intelligence team observed that Microsoft was the top spoofed brand in 2024. And the trend line you see there is meant to be an example that your historical trend line and how you view your reporting shouldn't be just a straight decline. It's okay, and in fact, good practice to look like a roller coaster, having those ups and downs as you mature your program and add and incorporate other aspects and tactics into your SAT program.
Another key aspect of building a great program is to take a non-punitive approach. It's very easy and it's seductive even when you're building out a program to want to punish people who are not being able to make it up the conditioning curve and are continuing to show susceptibility to phishing simulations. But what you really want to look at is your learning population, your employee base, are assets to help defend your company assets. So here's 4 things that we'd like to recommend in building a good program that you should do. Develop a recognition system. You want to call out publicly your best reporters, the folks who are reporting not just simulated phishing attacks, but real threats as well. Make sure that you're having a pipeline from your SOC back to your security awareness training team so that you can recognize people who are actually out there on the front lines protecting the company. It makes a big difference when good behavior is recognized. Also collaborate versus dictate. Collaborate with your employee base. I often say that you want to deputize every employee to be a sort of like a junior member of the SOC. Every time somebody logs into their email client or their collaboration tool, they are actually a human firewall out there preventing bad actors from getting inside the company. So you want to collaborate with them and work with functional management to create programs that work for everyone and put the safety of the company first. On the back side of that, you want to empower feedback. When you get feedback from your learners, from your employees, this is a gift, and it lets you know what's falling flat, what's working really well, or if there's some area where your learner population is just not getting it, it can be an area where you can shift your focus. Listen to that feedback, because if you're getting lots of negative feedback, it's often not leading to a place that you're going to want to be and not necessarily somewhere that's going to be more successful. The next thing is to apply different learning activities. Don't let it get boring. You want to continually change your engagement vectors with your employees so that it's not just the same sort of compliance-based training model. Compliance is not really focused on you learning anything. Compliance is focused on giving you legal cover. The focus of a good SAT program is to have an employee interact with a piece of content and gain insight that lets them manifest better behaviors. And you can see here over on our metric side that the susceptibility rate for punitive versus non-punitive is significantly lower for non-punitive. The resiliency rate is higher for non-punitive. And this is, over many companies of data. So you might understand this at a human level, but just at a strictly mathematic level, non-punitive programs work much better. And you're going to be much better off if you take that approach.
So building upon what we've already learned from Lee and Rachel about different styles of training types, and also building in, layering in all kinds of other learning models, I will say, while email is the #1 phishing attack vector, you shouldn't discount other communication channels, especially those that are targeting someone's personal device. In 2023 and 2024, we saw a spike in QR codes in the workplace. It's not unusual for individuals to engage with a QR code in their daily personal life, especially during that pandemic. So employees were more susceptible to this threat tactic. It goes back again to best practice #1 as well, making sure you're sharing and mixing in external outside of the office guidance and information. As QR code methods started to take a decline, our Phishing Defense Center saw a rise in voice and text phishing, especially throughout 2024 and 2025. On screen, you can see here the percentage of phone scams or phishing attacks over just the last quarter. Our PDC noted that healthcare is the most targeted industry for phishing attacks. So when it comes to phishing, it's important to note that AI tools are exacerbating this attack type. Threat actors use AI cloning, they're using deepfake technology to impersonate trusted colleagues, and AI chatbots make those interactions feel more conversationally based. AI can also be leveraged to use for automatic dialing capabilities, which allows that quick spray attack. So again, relating back to what Lee mentioned earlier, organizations need to leverage a variety of training tools to help inform employees. It could be newsletters, videos, games, simulators, just anything to help educate the workforce on also multi-channel attack techniques.
We have talked a lot about the evolution of phishing attacks and the tactics being used. And this is why relying on a single layer strategy just isn't enough. Here at Cofense, we term this defense in depth. And Cofense found that customers who have implemented security awareness training, SAT, plus phishing detection and response, which we call PDR, they have an increased resiliency compared to organizations who only have an SAT program, as you can see there on the screen. In addition, customers who also have our managed PDR services see an added benefit. And that's because they have trained, or we have trained experts who perform the analysis and remediation on behalf of the customer and the organization. And this is going to reduce that dwell time to mere minutes instead of the days, weeks, or maybe even months that you may be experiencing today. And a big part of this is around employee engagement. With PDR, employees who report receive real-time feedback and results of their reported messages, and this gives them insight and makes them feel part of your overall organizational security defenses.
Lastly, at Cofense, we understand the important metric that many organizations are looking for today is figuring out how your company stacks up to others within your industry vertical, and even your industry and how it's comparing to other industries. We've noted that the top 3 resilient industries are transportation, management, and utilities, which you can see highlighted on screen here. Also, industries that are more stringent in regulations show higher resilience, like finance and insurance, trade, retail, and healthcare. These industries usually have more guidelines and controls and standardized processes in place. So don't be afraid to compare yourself to others, but also know that you may be in a different stage of maturation, and that's okay too.
So in summary, one of the big takeaways we'd like you to come away from this engagement with us is that what do all of these best practices end up giving you if you instantiate them in your program? And it's to develop a sensitivity and a level of situational awareness at the level of every single employee. Because we're not just training folks against threats that have happened. What we're trying to do is build a degree of human resiliency that's ready for a zero-day threat. So build a program that makes employees ready to face down a new threat and ask themselves the question, is this something I would normally do? Is this outside of the bounds of established process and procedure? Build that sensitivity to understand that what they may be looking at may actually be the front for a threat. If you do all of these, if you take into account all of these best practices that we've shared with you today, you'll be well on the way to building that level of sensitivity and situational awareness at the individual employee level. So please, if you take one thing away, take that away. I also want to call out, just as a backup, our Security Awareness Month resources for this year. So Formula One is our theme for this year. I'm incredibly proud with what the team has built. We're actually building a whole list of content that you can see on the side. So 2 different newsletters, 6 different scenario templates. So those are phishing simulations, 6 different, we call them Cyber Pit Crew interactive HTML education pages. We're going to have 4 different Formula Fish Choose Your Fish education titles. So these are adaptive races. Each one of those 4 Choose Your Fish titles has its own track. It's really outstanding. 5 different infographics for you to print out and put up, and 4 different awareness newsletters. We also built 44 Formula One quick tip awareness cards for you that you can deploy on your own land if you want to. We're going to be localizing this into 11 different languages, and we're targeting August 4th for having this available so you can get ready for October Security Awareness Month.
Thanks, Lee. And then to kind of finish us up here, more great resources are available to you today. Just check out our newly designed website at cofense.com.
Great. At this time, we're going to switch over to the live Q&A portion. If you haven't done so already, you can go ahead and post your questions in the Q&A window within your console. And I see we have a few questions already, so let's go ahead and jump in. So this first one is, why should our goal not be 0% click rate? And Amanda, I'll have you answer this one.
Perfect. Thank you, Rachel. So I think, Rachel, you stated it really well earlier, right? You should see a roller coaster effect. That's what we anticipate to see for anybody's mature security and awareness training program. If you're starting to see low dips in susceptibility or a flat line, what we know is it's time for you to turn up the heat, right? So again, it goes back to those maturation conversations about how can you make it a little bit more relevant for your end users? What are you doing today in terms of different styles or types of training options? And also, are you using some personalization? Are you using your domain? Are you doing some spearfish? All of that should be incorporated inside of your program. So a flat line at Cofense, that is not what we want to see. You should see those roller coaster effects.
Yep, absolutely, Amanda. All right, Lee, I'm going to give this one to you. What is the best content type to build the most knowledge within my employee base?
Well, so that's going to depend from employee population to employee population, but from an instructional design standpoint, we have a lot of different types to choose from, but for this question, I'd probably point to the Choose Your Fish titles. We have several different ones to choose from. Some of them are focused on specific learning objectives, but some of them are actually comprehensive and cover a wide range within the whole security awareness training topic. These titles basically put the employee in the shoes of another person often, and they're going to change the outcome based on the choices the employee makes. So it's not just that they're pedantically being given a lesson and saying, here's the facts, I'm going to quiz you on those facts in the next slide. It's really asking them to engage in some critical thinking while it's actually making memories a little bit differently than you would with sort of this straight up textbook style learning. So short answer I would recommend is choose your fish, but we've got a lot to choose from.
All right. And thank you everyone for joining today. If we didn't get to your question, we will reach out to you directly to make sure you get that information. And we hope that the information covered today was helpful in building a resilient SAT program. Thank you again, and everyone have a great rest of your day.